Morning, everyone. Hope you are well. This morning's learning is dedicated in memory of Ami Bas Aryeh, Paul Casimir, Yirmiyahu Chir ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Chir ben Moshe Eliezer, ben Zion ben Yitzchok, Aryeh ben Shimon Bas Faiva, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Kapna, as well as the Yort sites for today, which are as follows: Yehuda ben Moshe Edelman, Rachel Bas Yitzchok Moshe Nicholsby, Aaron ben Tzvi, Helen Oppel, and Eliyahu ben Eliezer Wiseman. We wish them all long life and only simchas. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, friends. Hope you're all well. So continuing our great odyssey as we discuss about Korach and his rebellion, the greatest rebellion, the first, but certainly not the last, in relation to leadership and trying to cause division in the rank and file of the Jewish people. So the ethics of the fathers, you may recall many moons ago when we were learning ethics of the fathers, Pirkei Avos, we came across the Mishnah. And the Mishnah discusses about what is an argument that is for the sake of heaven, and what is an argument that is not for the sake of heaven. The Mishnah goes as follows. Ezehi machlokes l'shem shamayim. What is an argument that is for the sake of heaven? Says the Mishnah, that is an argument of Hillel and Shammai. Then the Mishnah carries on. And what is a machloket? What is an argument that is not for the sake of heaven? That is Korach and his followers. Okay? Now, anyone, even a child, that looks at that Mishnah, good morning, Stan, good morning, Richard, Estelle, Caroline, Rachel, Michael, Kanai, Nahara, big crowd today, Peter, Carol, and all of those that are still joining us this morning. We'll also dedicate the learning for Refuah Shlema, two people that are in hospital, Rivka Basleya and Muriel Marks. I don't know her Hebrew name, but we wish her well. So it goes as follows. Anyone that sees this Mishnah will see that there is no symmetry. Hillel and Shammai were two adversaries, okay, quote unquote, and therefore and we see them on, pitted against one another. When it comes to an argument that is not for the sake of heaven, we would expect that would be Moshe and Korach, or Moshe, Korach, and his followers. And yet the Mishnah says, doesn't mention a word about Moshe. It's Korach and his followers. Why is that? So the idea is that we have to understand what is an argument. When is it correct to argue? Think about all the words that we have for arguments. Right? A broigus, a faribul, a machlokas, a disagreement. We're not speaking to them. They're not speaking to us. Don't even ask about it. Don't even go there. We have so many different phrases that are able to express the sensitivity surrounding any type of disagreement. So an argument that is for the sake of heaven is where it is that both sides are pursuing the course of truth. They are trying to plumb the depths to establish and to arrive at an understanding as to what is the truth, what God wants from me. Okay? And therefore, they are keen to know the other perspective, to see whether that perspective, which they hadn't thought about, or they weren't of that particular position, they want to know maybe that's a better perspective. Maybe that's a correct perspective. And they will discuss for hours and days and even sometimes months on end until they arrive at an understanding. And when they do, both sides are happy because they are going through this process of discussion and disagreement and discourse in order to arrive at an understanding as to what is the truth, what's the bottom line, how we meant to proceed in this world. So everyone comes out a winner. And what about an argument that's not for the sake of heaven? I remember a family dispute many years ago, and when I asked what it was about, I was told, don't go there. And then I asked again, and I was told, truth is, nobody knows. Nobody knows? Nobody knows? Everyone's not speaking to one to another for years, for generations. And we don't even know what it's about. Was it so important? Was it so important that we had to divide the family? that we cut off relationships, that we pulled up the drawbridge, nothing to do with them, won't speak to them, will cross the road rather than look at them? Is that the way we're meant to behave? An argument that's not for the sake of heaven is where there is ego, self-interest. It's not about discovering truth. It's about winning the argument. It's about winning the argument. I think there was a sports person, I mentioned it in the Bar Mitzvah this morning in Shul, that said once that winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. And it is so true. We lose sight of what the actual dispute is about. We say it's all about the principle, right? Very often when money's involved, and money is always a cause of division and tension and fractions in relationships. And when you discuss it with people, as I have to do, everyone always says the same thing. You don't understand, Rabbi. It's the principle. It's the principle. Let me tell you, when money is involved, it's never the principle, it's the money. Okay? But the point is, everyone's in it for themselves, and everyone wants to win the argument, to make their point, to prove that they're right and the other's wrong. When an argument is finished of such an argument, there are no winners. Everyone's a loser. Everyone comes out hurt and bruised and scarred emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and the damage can be for generations. Korach and his followers didn't actually get along. It was more about a band of renegade heretics that came together for the sake of unifying after a common enemy. The enemy was Moshe. The enemy was truth. And what they did is they came up with a whole story and Megillah in order to camouflage, right, their real agenda, their ulterior motives. They said it's about for the sake of the Jewish people, right? Everyone's holy and everyone should be a leader. Everyone should take pride and place, right? Really, it was camouflaging their desire, their greed, their passion and hunger for leadership, for position, for power, for honor and glory. That's what it was all about. And everyone came with a different claim. And it's very interesting how the whole thing fell apart and unraveled in front of their eyes. But that's why the Mishnah says, it's unbelievable. The Mishnah says, an argument for the sake of heaven is that of Hillel and Shammai. Okay? And that argument, the Mishnah says, will endure forever. I would have thought that we don't want an argument to endure. And yet we know that where it is an argument for the sake of heaven, both perspectives can contain truth. Now, ultimately, in terms of practicalities, we may have to follow one view, but both of them coming from an authentic, sincere desire to discover the truth, there could be truth in both of them, right? If they're coming from an authentic place. And therefore, such an argument will endure forever because there is truth in both of them. But where it is that the ego takes over, where it's all about being selfish and it's all about honor and grandeur, then there's no truth there, right? Bernstein famously said, truth is the first casualty when it comes to an argument. Truth is the first casualty when it comes to an argument. And therefore that gives us perspective. So I want to leave that there. Enough said about arguments and disputes. Of course, it's not relevant to any of us, but something to bear in mind. I want to move on. To a fascinating Malbim, an idea that he says in the Sedra, just to see the way things work. So we know that after the dispute, Moshe wanted to make it quite clear to the people who was right and who was wrong, so that because Korach had challenged the fundamental tenets of Judaism, which is Moshe and the Torah, Moshe emes v'soraso emes, Moshe's truth and so is the Torah, and therefore he wanted a miracle, and this is the only time Moshe asked for a miracle in order to display that the sanctity of the honor of God would be restored. And an earthquake was made and it swallowed up all the all those involved, Korach and his followers, and Dasan and Aviram. And the question is obvious. If Moshe was going to ask for some great, supernatural phenomenon, an earthquake is nothing special, says the Malbim, right? You go to San Francisco, you go to California, they have earthquakes all the time. You even go to Israel. A few years ago, they had an earthquake in Israel, didn't they? So what was the whole so special about this earthquake? So it's interesting. The Malbim says an unbelievable idea. He says, normally an earthquake is where the earth is divided in two. And if you're standing in that particular position in the line of the earthquake, then you get swallowed up. Where were they standing at the time of this dispute? So Korach was standing next to the tent of the meeting, and Dasan and Aviram were standing miles away. The rest of the rabble was standing somewhere else. Everyone was in a different location. God made a miracle. This was no normal earthquake. You never remember Pac-Man? Pac-Man was this little thing that went and it moved. This was a mouth that moved, this earthquake, and it went around from place to place, from one area to the other area, swallowing them all up. So there was no question that this was an open miracle, which therefore restored the trust and faith in God and in Moshe's leadership. Now, what's telling is that we're told by our sages that there is that place where the earthquake took place. An Arab actually discovered it many years ago. That to this day, if you know where that place is, there is a voice that comes out of there which says Moshe emes v'sorasa emes. Moshe is truth and his Torah is truth. And therefore the earth, as it were, and those that died there are testifying retrospectively, that they made a terrible error of judgment. How often, friends, is it in life that when we look back at moments in our lives and we say to ourselves, was it actually worth it? It's very rare. I can only speak for myself. It's very rare that you have an argument and afterwards you say, yeah, I'm really happy I had that argument. 99.9% of the time, reoccurring, you say to yourself, don't know if it was actually worth it. Nothing was achieved. Nothing was accomplished. It wasn't worth having. They weren't listening. It's worth thinking about that for the future. Please God, we should have shalom in our lives, peace in our lives, and an end to machlokas. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Adon Elamim Zacho Es Nishmois. Ami Bas Aryeh, Paul Kazmi, Yom Yochi ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Yechia ben Moshe Eliezer, Ben Sion ben Yitzchak, Aryeh ben Shimon, Leah Bas Faivel, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katner, as well as the Yortzites for today, Yehuda ben Moshe Edelman, Rachel Leah Bas Yitzchak Moshe Nicholsby, Aaron ben Tzvi, Helen Uphill, Eliyahu ben Eliezer Wiseman, Shalchu li Olamam, Began Eiden Teimenucha, Sam Lachim Alarachamim, Yasti Rain Besaisa Kanavam Leolamim, Vayisochem Mr. Shasam Adna Nachlasam, Vianuchu Bishlomish Gavam, Venomar, Amen. Long life to everyone. Lastly, Refush Shlema prayer. Misha Berach Avasin Ram Yisrael Yaakov, Misha Ve'u Yivarech Es Kol HaChaylim, Babu Shani Mispalim, Babu Ram, Misra Sakash Baruch Yimale Rachim Aleichem, Lachman, Fotzam Mishlach Lem, Fushlim, Shemaim Lacholevim Besoch, Shachol Yisrael, Refu Esanef, Shvusukov, Hashavak Zmakarev, Venoma, Amen. Refush Shlema to everyone. Looking forward tonight. I think it's 8:15. Even though he's abroad, he's agreed to do an interview with me. And that is Larry Wood, who'll be doing. He's one of the director of a large franchise on Edgware Road of cars, and therefore he'll be discussing with us the advances, all the questions that we have about cars. And there has never been a more important time to have this discussion, because the whole industry is literally being revolutionized by hybrid, by electric. And the question is, where are we? Where are we going? Should we be getting rid of our cars now? How long can we keep them for? Whether we should buy an electric? What's his thoughts? What's a good? What's bad? We'll hear all about it all tonight. Looking forward to seeing you. Don't miss it. Please join me 8:15 tonight. All the very best. Have a great day.